Hey there, it's Marley Major. Before we dig in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell because you definitely don't want to miss another glorious disaster here on Every Day's a Train Wreck. Because missing an episode, now that would be a train wreck. Let's get to it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Every Day's a Train Wreck. I'm your host, Marley Major, and I loved her so much on the podcast last time, but it was just too short. So I brought her back. Miss Olivia Sammons, who is the one that interviewed me for the Founders Future, right? That's right. Founders Future podcast.
Yep.
And she's such a closer. She closed me when I wasn't even trying to be closed for what they do for sales. But it's Olivia more that I'm fascinated with and her soccer background, etc. So Olivia, welcome to the show. And please tell everybody kind of what it is you do. And then we'll dig into the good follow-up stuff.
Cool. Okay. So my name's Olivia, number one. What it is that I do. So I interview founders on my podcast as my job, which is pretty cool. So we interview founders, much like Marley. And then from there, obviously, it doesn't always work out well. But the point is we get them on and then hopefully we can introduce ourselves to their services as well. So, yeah.
Okay. Now tell us, what do your services do?
So essentially at Closers.io, what we do is we help anyone that's got an agency, so whether that's you're a coach, consultant, agency, or anyone that's got an online service, we help them scale that. So that's through helping their marketing and sales efforts. So we have the 4 pillars. So the first thing is making sure that the offer essentially is scalable to cold acquisition. This is such a key part. So you have to make sure you're seen as that specialist in your field so that the price point's there, messaging's on point, and just very, very much trusted from that cold outreach. We then help set up the cold outreach channels within the company. So whether that be through cold outreach, as I just mentioned, or paid acquisitions, I would always recommend paid acquisitions just for the consistency and reliability you get from it. So we help with that aspect. And then once you have leads coming in, as you know, you need to turn them into sales. So we help with the sales process and at the end of that, making sure the founder is aware of that whole process. And then from there, we can help scale the company with the recruitment side and implement a sales team to help replace the founder from that role.
I love it. And so much to unpack. Okay. So when you first said, though, you said you interview people for the podcast, doesn't always work out. Did you mean they're not good guests? Or did you mean
amazing guests? Amazing guests. And I said the whole essence of the podcast it's actually a podcast. Like it's a very enjoyable experience.
Oh, 100%.
The aim of it, is to obviously market ourselves. So when it works out well, like in your episode, and we are a good fit for each other, you move on to the next part of the service.
So there are so many things to go over. So when I talk to you, and then I'm always fascinated kind of not just with the founder of the company, because I was like, oh, I want to have you on the podcast. And you're like, no, you want to have like Cole, that's the founder. And I'm like, no, really, I don't want Cole. I mean, sorry, Cole, if you're listening. That's great. Cole is fine, right? But I'm always after like the backstory, and that's kind of what the podcast is all about. And how did you get here? And wow, that's so interesting. And, last time we talked about your whole soccer thing. And then we got into this crazy ADHD discussion and neurodivergence and all that stuff, which I find fascinating. And I think really resonates with the listeners because I also did this, like the first podcast of the year. I might've mentioned this when we talked originally. The first podcast of the year to kick off 2026, I really went out on a limb and I did like this solo podcast on, hey, because the fires had just happened, a year ago from where I live. And so I was noting like, oh my gosh, 2025 started with the fires and basically, as far as I'm concerned, ended on fire because it was like a dumpster fire. And here we are. And it was like, we're coming off the holidays. And to me, everybody sends the perfect Christmas postcards, right? Like the perfect, like here's the dog and everybody's all matching and the whole thing. And I was like, is there anybody else out there who doesn't feel like their Christmas card or Hanukkah card picture is perfect? I said, because I've had a rough year. Like I had broken my back. I was still having all these problems with it. The end of the year was really rough for me. And it was so interesting because I got so many texts and messages from people saying, like really heartfelt things like, oh my gosh, I thought you were totally talking to me. I really resonated. I had a rough year also, et cetera, et cetera. And where I'm kind of pulling that together with ADHD and like neurodivergence and what we are talking about on the other podcast. If you guys, by the way, haven't listened to Olivia's other podcast, make sure you listen to it. It's short and sweet, but it'll make sense for this one. Is you mentioned something about like not fitting in, you can say your words, but something about like realizing you didn't exactly quote fit into the mold of kind of what everybody else was doing around you, whether it was in high school or later. And I think so many of us with ADHD feel that way until we get, diagnosed with it. And then we're like, oh, thank you. Like, I'm not just crazy or slow or stupid. Right. And then it's like you're validated somehow. And I was very surprised. I didn't want to reveal kind of what I revealed on that podcast at the beginning of the year because, you don't ever want to say like anything is other than perfect. But I was so encouraged by the messages from people that said, hey, that was really inspiring. Or, hey, I've been listening to like a lot of the resources you gave and that kind of stuff. And so, Olivia, when you get stuck, whether it's with work, with like your company stuff, maybe it's a fitness goal, anything, how do you pull yourself out of it? Like, how do you get yourself out of that slump so you don't kind of go further south?
In all honesty, it changes every time. I think because like for ADHD, it does go up and down. Like I know for myself, this year has been rough as well. I started the year in a very different job role. I then had changed a lot and then things happen. So I think for me, it's just exercise is a big thing in my life. And that is always what drags me out of those bad spells. So for me, it's having discipline with something that you enjoy, because I very much enjoy exercising. So for example, if it's reading, singing, listening to music, whatever it is, I get obsessed with that when I'm feeling sad, and I allow myself to feel sad because I think you have to feel those feelings. So I allow that to happen. And then as soon as I know that I've allowed myself to feel it, I let go of it and I just do what I want to do. So I throw myself into running to forget about it, but I allow myself to feel it before I do.
I think that's a key thing you just said, which is sort of compartmentalizing it and like allowing yourself to have the pity party. So you're not just ignoring it. You're not just having a cocktail. You're like, okay, this is lousy. I'm acknowledging it. I'm going to give it a certain amount of time, whatever that's going to be. But then we're going to move on, and we're going to move on to something healthy. Because as soon as like, you're like, oh, and then, whatever you do because you're going to go running and I'm going to go on a cupcake eating marathon, right? Like that's naturally where I'm going to go, which is not going to be a good thing. So I love what you said, because it's like doing something healthy or singing and by the way, it's funny you said singing, because there is a lot of data about when you sing and like singing every day, like out loud. And now I have probably the worst voice anybody has ever heard. I mean, I think I'm really fabulous in my head, but it does make me feel a lot better. It makes everybody else around me feel worse. I really should only do it in my car, but heads up, there's a lot of data showing that singing for some reason, and I would say music in general kind of like, flips things. But the other thing too, that is really funny about what you're saying is, so it's the beginning of the year, it's 2026, it's January. We're a few weeks in, and I've had I already told everybody at the beginning of the year kind of started as its own dumpster fire, but I've had like really specific goals. I always do for business, personally, etc. And what's so funny is when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? So you guys pitched me to be on the podcast. I was like, yeah, sure. Had no intention of I was like, what am I going to sign up for sales stuff, right? Like, I think I'm a pretty good salesperson, but I just wasn't even thinking of that. But in order to have you on the podcast, I said, yeah, I'll have my call with the guys. And then it's Amar, right? Or is that Amar?
That happened after the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So after the podcast, but his name is Amar, right?
Yeah.
So then I got flipped like, okay, just talk to him. And I was like, okay, great. And I then signed up with you guys with this 12-week program, and I was all excited. And I'm telling my assistant, and she is like, what, we're like relaunching the website. We have like 9,000 projects. Like now we're in sales school for 3 months. And it was like, yes. Where I'm going with this is this week has been a really busy week, as was last week. And so I just listened to Mr. Cole Gordon on my sales videos and my pitch videos. And then the other guy, I forget his name. So it was kind of like, I feel like what you were doing with running, right? And it was amazing because it kept my mind occupied and occupied on good things. Like I got distracted in the best way. Plus, I felt like I was being proactive and like productive. So I wonder, do you think there's a certain component to that as well? Like you do something to distract yourself, but like afterwards, like you're getting a runner's high, or I'm probably getting some kind of dopamine or something, just feeling like, oh yay, I've learned something.
Yeah, 100%. I think a bit of both of that. And also I think with ADHD, like what you have to remember is we get distracted a lot. So like,
Yes.
so the thing with like, for me, what's running, it's a distraction so that my brain can start thinking. When you're doing something else, your brain is still working in the back end. So it's like another distraction for me is cooking. Singing as well. I can't sing to save my life, but I love listening to music. So cooking is the same
I
kind
feel
of thing.
better.
It's
Okay.
anything that's like, for me, like a manual task. Like I love ironing for the same thing because you can just get lost for hours. For me,
Wow. Okay. I love ironing. It never
yeah.
dawned on me that that could be an ADHD thing. I wonder if that
And I think it's
actually,
just a good enough distraction to keep you entertained. And my brain just goes on reels. I like come up with ideas, whatever. Like I sort out any bad thoughts. It's like it unravels itself. And it's for
it,
me, it's the same effect as if you're working as well. You just kind of unpack everything as you go.
yeah, I never thought of that, but that would be the same thing as like gardening. Like it's
Yeah,
not such heavy lifting. It's like you can kind of, you can be thinking and
it's mundane
dreaming.
enough but enjoyable at the
Right.
same.
Yeah. And then you have something to show for it, like
Yeah,
beautiful iron
yeah, and it's the
shirts.
same.
Or,
And that's the same aspect of the dopamine after the like you go for a run or for example doing your self training. It's the same aspect of the same thing. It's crazy.
and then, after we go from Amar, then we go to Riz, who's now our like project,
Awesome.
I forget what it's called, project manager, who, you had flipped me to him. And poor Riz, I'm like in the Slack channel, like, hi, I watched all the videos. Hi, just confirming like I did my homework. Hi, like when can we have our next call? Hi. And he's just like, okay, goodness. And I literally had listened to so many of my training yesterday and well, really all weekend, that you guys have this thing when you're selling that you're always supposed to say, something like, oh, like, does that make sense to you? Or does that make sense to you? Whatever it is. And the person's going to say, yeah. And then you're supposed to say, like, what questions do you have about that? Some version of that, right? So Riz today asked my assistant, he goes, so do you have any questions? I was like, oh no, Riz. I said, I am sorry to tell you this on a taped line. That is not the question. I said, the question is, what are your questions about this? So yeah, talk about creating. It's like he's like created an AI monster in me. I'm
I
just
love
like,
that.
that's not how that goes, Riz. So, uh, what is it? Well, here's the next question. Cole, who founded, I mean, I'm so impressed by that guy. And this is like, I am not in any way benefiting from touting you guys, but he is that guy is a machine. And my question to you is, do you think he has ADHD?
Probably, or he's probably on the spectrum, but I think they all are. If you look at Homozy, I mean, you'd even go to like, what's his name now? I can't even remember his name, but
The blonde guy that does a lot of them?
yeah, I would. Yeah, I would even go to like Tony Robbins. I think anyone that's on that level has to have that kind of discipline that comes with being neurodivergent or like neurospicy. But I think Cole is just an amazing guy, and I think what I love most about Cole is he's so down to earth,
Yeah.
unlike the other lot. The other lot paint a life, and they dig that like hard sales, or
Yeah.
like hustle culture. But Cole is
Mhm.
very realistic with it, and he actually does a very good job. And it's amazing to work for a man like Cole as well. Like generally, he's just very down to earth.
And made me think of it too, because first of all, he's so passionate about it. Second of all, I don't want to say he's narrow, but he has read literally everything. Like I'm a giant reader. I mean, I have so many books and read so much. And he's like, you can read this book to learn more about this. You can read this book to learn more about you can read the blah,
Nice.
blah, 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 blah. And I agree with so many things he says, because number one, he says if you're going to be really good at something, you have to be like a constant learner. I mean, and that was one of Stephen Covey's things is, sharpen the saw, where you're always just kind of learning these new things. And another thing is how he talks about like going really deep into these subjects. But the other thing too is he's like big exercise guy too. It seems like and I think I know Anthony Robbins is. And then the other guy that does the videos, I'm sorry, I'm blank on his name, but it seems like it's like there's a discipline and a structure. And for me with ADHD, I always feel like I don't want structure. Like I don't like rules. But I think it is really important. What do you think?
It is. Structure with ADHD is very important, and I know it's like very against the grain, but particularly with exercise, it again, I don't know what it is about it. Like I'm not done that much reading, but I just do know that if you exercise calms the ADHD brain. It allows you to unpack and think. It's like the best thing you can do for it in terms of clearing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think having that level of discipline helps you throughout the day, and if you enjoy exercising, it makes it so much easier to do as well when you have ADHD. But
Yeah.
they definitely come hand in hand. And it was part of like my football journey was all ADHD as well, because I just got obsessed, and then you don't want to stop.
And that's the thing is what people don't realize too is like, yes, we're totally distracted at times, but we have the superpower of being able to channel right into like, like I say, it's like burrowing through concrete. Like once I get my mindset on something, forget it. There's nothing
And
going to
it can
get
be
in my
like
way.
the most random thing as well, like just out of the blue. And I'm like, suddenly I know how to make candles. I'm like, yep. Like,
exactly. I have the candle make. Maybe you can come over and make candles with me. You know what? You're so, and then it's like everything about candles or everything about an app. Like we're supposed to sign up with Go High Level, right? And we use Kajabi, this kind of CRM, but they're like, oh, use Go High Level. And I was like, this is so not what I need to do. Now I'm like going to be watching every training video about freaking Go High Level. Like this is so, how is it so much better? Like
it's just so easy to use. It's just so simple the way it flows. I used to use Go High Level for about like 3 years. It was really good. Really
and
good.
that's how you guys put all your lead, like how you kind of organize yourself, right?
Yeah. So
And
that's one aspect of it.
and do you like, how, like we were talking last time about like when you're selling and stuff, you have these kind of like scripts or these cut and paste things and stuff. Do you keep those in Go High Level? Like, do you use, or do you have them like in Google Drive or something?
I keep my ones personally on like my notes page on my MacBook, just because they're my ones that I've made. But you can put templates on Go High Level, and I've done it before. But I just think it's a lot easier to copy and paste it, because I have when I used to use Go High Level, I used to have like 8 tabs of it open. So
and that's annoying.
So I could use it for dialing, and then obviously for the CRM, for messaging, whatever. So I used to have them all open, so I just switch between.
Like kind of going back to the sales thing, like if people are listening to this and they have their own company, because I think sales is one of the hardest. I am kind of naturally good at sales, but I think for other people who have their own businesses, we seem to forget that you actually constantly have to have leads coming in, right? Because there's natural attrition in business. There's just like some of your customers are just not going to use your service again or buy your products or whatever, just because that's how it goes.
Yeah.
They just might not need it. They moved, whatever it is. And I think as entrepreneurs, we get so in our heads and focused on like the jobs we have, or like, as I say, for event planners. And we forget that you've got to have like ads running or something that's constantly bringing people to your front door. And that was a real benefit to me of listening to your training stuff. We normally are slow in January, kind of January and February. There aren't tons of events, tons of events, the types of events that we want to do. But it really got me thinking, like, I could actually change that, right? Like I could, do these like paid ads and focus on actually filling my funnel during those down times. And I think the other thing that's great about your processes is there's kind of like, there's no excuse. Like you guys help us set up the structure and framework, and then we've got to follow our little A to Z checklist. And then you need to close your mouth, because unless you're not doing your homework, it's going to work.
With regards to the events company, but like even you can apply it to anything. Like the problem is, I think a lot of people, especially when it comes to online selling or like the high ticket space, they act as if it is a restaurant or like a shop that's popped up you know, in a mall or a shopping center, where they'll get like full traffic and people will just find them. If you're not
Bingo.
adverts
You
out there,
hit
no
it.
one's gonna know you're there.
You hit the nail on the head. And I never thought of it that way. That yes, a retail space is expensive and it's certainly not for everybody, but you're right. It's the foot traffic that's constantly going by. And so there's that constant opportunity to like, oh, see them, see their branding, see their, take a selfie in front of their shop. But the rest of us who have businesses who don't necessarily, we have an office and stuff, but it's not like a retail space.
Yeah.
But you forget that we're in our head so much about our business that we just think everybody, of course, they know we do X, Y, Z, but they don't. And especially, I think, with events and other creative industries and with social media, I think sometimes we see stuff on like Instagram or we see it on TikTok and we think like everybody just naturally gets all this business out of it. And I'm sure some people do, but I think the ones that probably do get a lot of business out of it are also ones that are like actually running ads or paying to go to that video of them baking the cake or decorating. And so if you're somebody who is not getting a ton of business off of social media, like probably because somebody else is paying a lot of money for it. Right?
Yeah. Or the messaging's on point. It's all about as well the ICP you're looking to hit. But a lot of people run ads and don't know how to do it. The great thing about that, I think the biggest thing to remember in business when you're talking about all of this is that you should never assume anything. So you should never assume that anyone knows who you are. You should never assume that anyone knows what you do. Because if you think about yourself and how you see the world, like I don't walk past and pay attention to anybody else.
Right.
You're in your own space too much. So it's the same for anything in business. You can't assume that everyone knows what you do. So you have to act as if no one does. And that's fine. And then from there, you can pick and choose. So if you're a shop front, for example, you have people walking by, you might have an Instagram account. Yeah, you get footfall coming in. But if you're an office building that's just got a banner above it, events company, but no one's going to know that you're running an event or whatever. So if you can put that on advertise and yes, pay money to push it, but also the thing with what we're teaching you at the moment is making sure the messaging is there. So you know exactly who you're talking to. You're not just throwing an ad out because you think someone wants to see it. You have to have an actual solution with that ad.
I love that. And here's the other thing is that one thing I noticed from the absolute get-go is that your messaging is literally exactly the same. I mean, and to me, it's like kind of guy messaging. Like the reason I say that is because like whenever we do something, like we're so focused on the branding and the Pantone color and the this and the that and all that stuff. And I think our target audience resonates with that, which that can get you in trouble later because sometimes you spend too much time on the wrong thing. But the reason I say it's guy messaging is like, I feel like these guys pull up the Google Doc with like, these are the 4 things that closers.io does. Right. And I swear to you, I feel like then your ads or your board that we work on, I feel like everybody's just cutting and pasting those exact things. And which is really nice because it's like we know what you guys do, you know?
The thing of what a lot of people do is use a lot of jargon because they mistake marketing for advertising.
Yes.
The colors
and the difference.
So I can't tell you exactly the difference, but
tell us in your opinion what the difference.
So for me, marketing is more psychology. So marketing is part of the sales process. And then you have advertising, which is the branding, the graphic design, the colors of the logos, the fonts and whatever else. That's to grab people's attention. With marketing, you need to talk to their pain. You need to tell them why they need you or why you need them in essence. So that's why the messaging is so clear. And it is very bro messaging, but it's direct and to the point. There's no fluff. You're talking to exactly that person. You're giving them exactly what they need and then offering a way to obtain that. That's what you need to offer people. Everyone's busy. Everyone has their own time. They just want information and move on. That's the best way to do it. Can you help me? Yes, you can. Okay, amazing. How?
Yes. And it is like, as you're saying, like the bro messaging or whatever, but it's funny because I mean, based on being in your forums and stuff, I mean, there definitely are more men in there, I think, than women, but maybe not, but at least the ones it seems that are commenting. But the reason I say that is, to me, that's a great thing because to me, it's like, it isn't fluff. It is just straight to the point. And what it got me so excited because as they say, I mean, everybody can always learn how to sell better when you have a business, but it got me really inspired to like relaunch our whole, like we used to do this thing called How to Be a Party Goddess, right? Where, we took like people who wanted to get into event planning and taught them how to launch their business. And that's what we're now relaunching. I think we did this 15 years, maybe 18 years ago or something. I mean, it was like right when my daughter was born. She's going to be 18 in April. It was when we kind of started this process of creating this digital space. And then, COVID happened and all that other stuff. And then, but when I'm talking to the guys, I was like, I'm actually like really revved up. I think you get to a point in your career where you don't necessarily need to be the one doing the events. We still do them, but it's so exciting to me to be able to like encourage other people to like put air under their wings and get them like launched into whatever amazing space they're going to be in. So it's really cool and rewarding. Who do you think succeeds the most in programs like yours, or just even in sales in general? Like if you had to describe the type of person or the attributes?
I think to succeed in the program, like for example, yourself, it's someone that applies themselves to it and does it. Like we said that already. I think online, like if anyone's looking to set up their own offer and do something, such like yourself, aiding somebody to earn money is always a great thing because people love earning money. So they will pay for a service that helps them earn money. Anyone that's in pain. So if you've got an offer where you can really solve somebody's pain, so whether that be a relationship coach, a pain coach, like a chronic pain coach.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, anyone that is suffering maybe from substance abuse and you can help solve that in a natural, holistic way.
Yeah.
Anything you can teach somebody how to make their life better is a great asset to start with. So if you're a real estater, like if you sell real estate or houses, whatever, if you can teach somebody how to be their own broker, why not do that?
I love it. And do you think, because the guys on the calls talk a lot about saturated markets and saturated businesses, and there's so many things that like I've taught in a different, or I might say it differently. Like I always say, entrepreneurs build their businesses backwards. Like we build the business based on what we're good at. And then we go, oh, good. Like this is amazing. You should buy it. But people don't buy that way. They buy based on, what they're looking for said how they want it said. And you guys preach that in a slightly, different way. Basically, like you got to give the customer what they want. Even sometimes not necessarily what they need. They might need to lose weight, but you have to give them what they want. They have to like actually want it. But they talk about saturated markets. Do you think, like based on your experience these days, like what are some markets that you think are really, really rough to go into these days and compete?
Fitness. Anything
really?
Fitness.
Because there's so many of them.
So many of them, and it's so hard to trust the right ones because everyone has an opinion. There's a lot of fad diets, there's a lot of this and all that, especially online. It's that's a tough one to follow. I don't know like off the top of my head numbers wise, but I know the type of people I speak to, and I speak to a lot of business coaches. I wouldn't say it's saturated because I feel like everyone needs help with their business, but that's a tough field to stand out in. You promise something different, as much like fitness as well. But I would say them two are very hard. Fitness is a very hard space to be in at the moment in general.
Yeah, that would make sense. And I think like that makes sense because when they were telling me, because I was like, well, I do this and I wrote a book on pricing and yada, yada. And they were like, let's niche it down further. And I said, well, and that's what made me think of, I was like, well, I mean, it's kind of more limiting, which I even know better than to say that because you do want it to be more of a niche because I genuinely can say, yeah, we have been voted one of the top event planners in the world. We have been voted, like all the credentials are there. But for me, sometimes I don't always like, oh, but like, what would I teach them? What would I mean? Which is insane because I have an opinion on everything. But I think you're right. When you say like business coaches or whatever, I just go, oh my gosh, like there's like everybody's a business coach. But when it gets really specific, like we teach people how to do this so they can, solve that problem. What do you think are some spaces that you think people should get into? So if like somebody's looking for a side hustle or somebody's looking like listening to this podcast and kind of like, well, I don't know, maybe I do want to leave my job or maybe I do want to start something. What do you think and it can even include, what would you want to see out there?
I don't know. That is a very good question though. That is a very good question. if you have to, while I'm talking, I'll think about it, because I had definitely heard one the other day and I was like, that was an amazing thing that I would help do. I think for me personally, if I was going to do anything, it would be helping people. It would be more like restaurant consultancy or like
Oh,
hospitality.
I think that would be, especially
I think
because,
that'd be amazing.
yeah, I do too. And especially these days, because there are mom and pops, there
Literally.
are like, even on, I think you could crush it. Like, Cole, I really hope you're not listening, but I think you could crush it. Because remember, I started in the restaurant business. I think you know
Yeah.
that, but restaurant consultants and all this stuff are like, usually super bougie and expensive and all this other stuff. And then you're like, oh my God, what did I just spend all that money on? But even like for you, even if you did like the mom and pop thing, or kind of like the non-franchise model, right? Like, let's say, assuming that somebody started because they're a great cook or it's a family business, et cetera. But even like monetizing food trucks and stuff,
Well, that's
I
cool.
think that would be so cool, because that is literally, those are like all over the world, right?
Yeah.
And there are so many mistakes you can make, because I mean, it's the money between the wallpaper and the wall, right? It's
Yeah.
like the margins are so thin, but yet some of them do so well because they're so smart about marketing, right? And yeah, so anyway, little plug, I think you should consider that. And what do you think makes the best kind of guest on your podcast?
Someone like you, actually, just, but it's
Oh, thank
not,
you.